Bryce Duskett on the Rural Radio Network, and joining us today is a familiar voice to the Rural Radio Network. You heard him here on the airwaves 10 plus years ago. Marlin Bohling is here. Marlin, appreciate your time. Good to have you back on the airwaves.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It still has a very fond place in my heart, the Rural Radio Network and KRVN.
You might remind me your stint here to set the context of the conversation, your time back here in Nebraska when you worked for KRVN, the flagship.
Yep. 2012, I believe, in the spring is when I arrived there. And I was there for basically about 2 years before the offer opened up in Nashville. And they invited me to Nashville to go to RFD-TV and Rural Radio on Sirius XM. Kind of a confusing name switch, but similar radio names. But it was a chance to go to a national and even international audience. So I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Plus, it was my kids are all grown up now, and they ended up in North Carolina, where I had been before I came to KRVN. So for me, it was a way to get back about halfway to where they are, and so I'm a lot closer than I had been.
Well, I wish we were bringing you on under different circumstances today, Marlin, but having you join the conversation because we're looking back at the life of Patrick Gottsch. He passed away over the weekend at age 70. I'm curious, when was the first time you met Patrick?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we talked quite a bit before he actually officially made me an offer to come to Nashville. I mean, I knew about him. Everybody knew about RFD-TV. It was kind of ironic because my very first radio station was in northern Kansas at a station called KFRM. And when I left, they hired someone named Janet Atkinson, and she was fresh out of school in Missouri, and she came to work for them. Oddly enough, in the meantime, when I went to North Carolina and then to KRVN, Janet Atkinson went to RFD-TV and started there and helped them set up a Washington News Bureau. And when they did that, I had a chance to get hired, and then I replaced her. So she followed me, and then I followed her, and it's just kind of a roundabout thing. So kind of weird how it worked out.
I believe you described Patrick one time. You're in your post celebrating Patrick's life. You referred to him as a visionary. I think that's a fair statement as you look back on and everything he's been able to achieve, launching RFD-TV. Of course, there's been several spinoffs. You mentioned Rural Radio on Sirius XM. What was the workplace like as Patrick would bring new ideas forward, I'm sure on the programming side too, that we didn't necessarily see here on the public side?
Yeah, I posted on Facebook yesterday that he could be very bullheaded. He could be very stubborn. He was just full of new ideas. I mean, they never stopped. He always was very creative. And I told him on the air one time that he was a visionary, and he was kind of taken aback by that. And I said, no, you are. Think about it. How you launched this whole ag broadcast industry pretty much on your own. And, that took some chutzpah to launch that back then. Nobody was doing that. And in fact, we're still basically the only one that does a rural lifestyle video channel, satellite channel around the clock. And so hats off to him. In fact, I know he has talked about several things in the past that, he would like to do as a goal. Pretty lofty goals that he had, but it was interesting. He could cover everything from Pasadena to Capitol Hill and Canada down to Brazil. And, he touched almost everything. Didn't matter if you were talking about production ag or research or FFA or horses or what have you, he would support it. And I thought that was pretty great.
You spent 10 years or so at RFD-TV. A lot of our listeners watch you over there as well, Marlin. Do you have a favorite memory of something that happened with Patrick?
Something that happened with Patrick. Sometimes he would show up at trade shows with overalls on, and that kind of caught me off guard when he would do that. I'm not sure why. I don't know if he just wanted to fit the theme or what, but I was always kind of intrigued by that. He was just a very unique individual. I mean, he he could come right down to earth and talk with anybody like you're talking over the fence row, but then he could bring in national and international VIPs and just work up in the stratosphere. And, he was comfortable either way. So I know he loved the equestrian realm. That was one of his favorites, but he always had big roots in in farming, and was still very active in the farm. In fact, they produced a lot of TV shows on his family's farm, and they quoted out some of the new technologies in agriculture, and that was kind of groundbreaking too, that he would do that.
You retired from RFD-TV. What was that? 4 or 5 months ago at this point, Marlin. Still fairly fresh. As you did so, though.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, that's it's kind of a fuzzy line, if you will. Technically, I turned 65 late last year, and I decided, where I live, it's outside of Nashville, but I've always had a home studio. You can see it behind me here. I maybe dressed it up a little bit, but I had a chance to work for a company in Iowa, Comstock Investments, and help them with digital media. And so now I'm executive director for them to do online content. And that helped me to avoid that 100-mile commute I was doing every day in rush hour traffic in Nashville, which is notorious for being horrible. So I jumped at the chance to do that. I can still do kind of what I was doing before. I still do market interviews. I still do ag-related interviews. But now I do it online. Most of it is in a podcast form. I'm going to be launching a new radio syndication series here coming up next month. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be interesting. And so, yeah, I mean, I haven't retired really by any stretch, just technically by age, but I'm still as busy as ever, except now my commute is more like 40 feet.
Yeah, that beats the 100 miles round trip.
Yeah.
It struck me watching I think it was your last day on the air at RFD-TV, Marlin, how appreciative Patrick was of the work that you did. I'm sure that's going to be a lasting memory for you.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was watching a rerun of it yesterday. I had saved a copy of that, and it was kind of surreal to see him talking about that. And it's been quite a ride, quite an experience. I mean, he opened up doors for me I never thought I would ever experience. I'm just a farm kid from the Kansas-Nebraska border. I don't know if anybody out there in the audience knows where Byron, Nebraska is, but that was my hometown. That's where I went to high school. But I never dreamed that I would ever get to be in network radio at several locations, and then let alone TV on a national and international scale. That's just kind of mind-blowing to me. But he made it all possible. He took that leap of faith, and he was more interested in what you know about the topic than having experience in the topic. And I think that went a long way. If you dig back through the history of all of us that did anchoring on RFD TV, we all have farm backgrounds. We all have, roots either to production ag, either crop production or livestock production or something. And that's just a testament to his vision of what he foresaw for that network. He wanted people that knew about it so that they could talk about it and relate to the audience. And I think that really proved out.
What else would you like to share, Marlin?
The life of Patrick. Well, it was cut too short. 70 years old. The older I get, I think, man, that's not that old anymore, And I was really impressed that he was driven the way he was. If I could do a tenth of what he accomplished, I would consider myself pretty successful. He had the vision. He was a satellite dealer earlier in his career. He used to sell satellite dishes and install them. And that's kind of how he got the bug, I guess you would say, about getting in the satellite television business. He kind of knew a little bit about the inside through that. Oddly enough, I used to sell satellite dishes, didn't have much luck at it. But anyway, it did pique my interest in it back in the 80s, I believe. But anyway, yeah, he always learned. He always added to his repertoire, and he just kept adding things. Oddly enough, here's a little tidbit for you. My oldest brother, come to find out, was one of the very earliest guests on RFD-TV at a live show when they were based in Omaha yet. Gosh, it may have been all the way back in '88 when they first started. I actually saw a video of it a while back. And that's when my brother was working for Ranke Manufacturing in Deschler. And I saw a video of that, and oh my gosh, the host was wearing the big square glasses and everything, and my brother, just looked very young on there. And to look back at the early days of RFD TV and to imagine where they are now, back then it looked like it was made on an Atari video game. But nowadays, with all the lavish effects and everything that we have incorporated, I tell you what, it was a big learning experience for me. It was just like going to continuous school, learning all this, how to do lighting, how to do miking, and how to do editing and all that. I mean, there is just so much to learn.
Former Rural Radio Network broadcaster based out of KRVN, Marlin Bohling, joining us today as we look back at the life of Patrick Gottsch, the founder and president of the Rural Media Group, who passed away over the weekend at age 70. Here on the Rural Radio Network, I'm Bryce Duskett reporting. All right, hang tight.